What's up guys, Ronaldo here, and today we're going over the top 10 damage dealers for the guild boss. And for that we have to consider a few things. So first of all, you have to imagine there is a certain meta at the moment with the Infernal, Nightmare and the Piercers being the main factions that are being used for the guild boss. Therefore these damage dealers from there will have an edge over others because they have good lords, they have good other units that are also doing well in guild boss. And on top of that, don't only just rate the damage they deal, but also if they bring some extra utility. So let's say if someone applies bleed, that's some more utility on top of the damage they deal, and that will improve the damage others will deal. So I will include that as well. And I think enough said for the beginning. Let's start off with our first unit, and that will be our first and only epic, and one of the rarest epics in the game, the flagship hero of the game, Deimos. So Deimos is extremely strong single target unit. He deals around 70 to 80 million. He can go up there for sure if you have really good gear on him. But unfortunately he's really rare, and his damage was all focused for guild boss and single target. As you can see, he deals a double hit, then he increases his damage with his ultimate, and then when he attacks the same target over and over again, his damage ramps up over and over again and makes him become extremely viable for guild boss. But unfortunately he is the only unit from the epics that is in guild boss, and unfortunately his attack for a fighter is quite low, right? He is only at 3k attack, which is quite low for a fighter, and therefore because of that his damage is only damage and he doesn't provide anything else. He's part of the Nightmare faction, and this is the third best faction, that's right. We'll get over it after. And this is why he is at the 10th place. And then for our 9th place we have Calypso. So Calypso excels at longer fights, as most of us already know, because of her ultimate stacking up her damage over and over again, getting her to deal more damage the longer a fight goes. And she really unleashes her full potential though at A5. That's a bit of a problem. If she is A5 though, she will actually get so much value out of the Soulbound Arcana set, because her ultimate only is a 500 cost ultimate, which makes it extremely valuable for her to get it quickly up, to get the Soulbound Arcana buff as fast as possible to 5 stacks, and then just rinse everyone with her 5 soul stones and just deal tons of damage. Calypso's main issue at the moment is though that she doesn't deal magic damage. She doesn't have the insane damage some other unit has on this list that is also a piercer, and her ultimate doesn't give her burst, it just increases her damage, which will also not synergize so well with the rage regen comp that you like to use nowadays, especially if you use something like a piercer infernal comp. So these are a few drawbacks that hold her down, and on top of it, of course, she gets held down by her really wanting that A5, and once she has that A5 she actually can really get going, but until that point she is pretty much on a similar pace than Deimos. Then to the 8th place of the list we have Nocturne, the unit I got today from our free legendaries that we got today. And yeah, he is really good for guild boss for sure. He is like the first top tier unit that we're getting in here now with the endgame content, and that is Nocturne. Nocturne deals insane amounts of damage during his ultimate. He deals magic damage, which is profitable for the guild boss, and he deals an insane amount of true damage. As you can see, he has a chance to deal true damage, which is just nuts, and him being infernal gives him an edge over a lot of other units, which makes him be extremely viable. And as we can see here, Nocturne is one of these units that can actually go over 100 million damage in the guild boss Nightmare 4, and he is actually really strong. Next up at our 6th and 7th place we have two units that are more so for their utility than for their raw damage output. And our 7th place goes to Salazar. So Salazar can not only deal a lot of damage, right? He deals a lot of damage, but his main thing is his bleed, because once he has that bleed, he will actually be able to help your nightmare units to deal a lot more damage. This is where a lot of value from Salazar comes through, is that bleed, because you can have the Scarlet Hunt to increase damage output, because you have the bleed that increases damage output of your fighters, and he is Nightmare, and the Nightmare units that you're gonna use in the guild boss are all fighters that really profit a lot from that bleed. And overall he is just really strong, and if we take a look at his damage, we can clearly see that he is up there. As you can see, a lot of damage here, or also here he does even more damage. And while his damage might not be as high as Nocturne's damage output, he improves the damage output of his other fighters, and this is his main point. He deals a lot of damage on his own, while on the same time buffs the damage of his team, which is really what his value comes from, where his value comes from. And then on the 6th place we also have another unit that gives utility while dealing a lot of damage, and that is Setram. So Setram has always been in the meta of Guild Boss, but he hasn't fallen out of favor like some other units, like Silas has fallen a bit out of favor with the rise of marksman piercer strats. Setram is still in there because Infernal is still the strongest faction. He is Infernal. He deals a lot of damage, especially during his ultimate, but his ultimate has a high cost, and the rage regen comp makes him profit a lot from that, because his high cost doesn't matter that much anymore, and he will still get his ultimate with quite a lot of uptime. Now, while dealing a lot of damage, he has a big profit, and that is increases all damage by 15%. Shielded targets take 50% extra damage. So you want to time your ultimate especially for the shield of the guild boss, and the utility you get from Setram using his ult on the guild boss will be insane, because you will clear this shield so quickly. Your other units will be able to deal a lot more damage because Setram will take care of the shield. And if you have his A1, he even becomes a lot stronger on top of that, because when he goes into his ultimate, he will buff 2 of his allies as well. So not only will he deal more damage to shields, but he will also buff his allies, his damaging allies as well. So he will be just a staple for quite a long time, until some people come and power creep him. And as you can see him pretty much in any top tier team. You can see someone using Setram, as we have here at the 1st place, someone dealing 120 million damage with Setram. And you have to consider that Setram, he helps out his team on top of that, right? So not only does he deal insane amount of damage, more than as for example Salazar, but he also helps out your team a lot. At 5th place we have Valeria, a unit that did surprise us all. She performs really well in the guild boss. She is just a raw damage dealer, and if you are able to make full use of her ultimate, of her HP deduction, and have her at low HP without dying, you can make her be extremely strong. Unfortunately though, it is quite hard to play around her, but if you manage to play around her perfectly, she will deal insane amounts of damage. And on top of that, she will also give vulnerability damage on the guild boss, which makes the other units hit harder as well. So not only does she deal a lot of damage, but she also gives some value to the other fighters that she is going to be paired with in the Nightmare faction. And if we take a look here, do we find some Valerias? Of course we do find some Valerias in the top bracket. 120 million here. Then here 100 million, another 100 million. As you can see, she does easily up to 100 million and even more, and all of this while being able to actually help her team out. And also she and the 4th place Arrogance have fallen out of favor a bit, and this is gonna be why they're 5th and 4th, and why I consider Cetra might be on a similar level to them is because the rage region comp, right? So our 4th place is Arrogance. Now Arrogance has quite decent attack, not as insane 6k attack as Valeria or 6.8k attack as someone like a Salazar, but Arrogance is just a raw damage dealer. He's just a raw damage dealer. He deals insane amounts of damage. With his ultimate, he just wipes, and deals insane amounts of damage. If you take a look at Arrogances all over the leaderboard, you will be able to see that he is a menace. As you can see, 120 million here. I think we have higher, 130 million. I've seen higher, actually. I've seen higher. So yeah, Arrogance also dealing a lot of damage. And one thing that I want to mention about Arrogance for you guys is that you want to use the Void Geyser. Oh, now it's a new name actually. Realm of Tyr is the new name. The Realm of Tyr you want to use on Arrogance because you will deal insane amounts of damage. I think the mechanic might be bugged when he enters because it calculates the distance wrong for Arrogance specifically. I have tried it on Arrogance and it is best set for Arrogance. You get it quite often and he deals insane amount of damage during it, and he will profit from a Nightmare team. But the reason, like I said, why she, Valeria and Arrogance are 4 and 5 and might even be lower than Setram is because of the current meta, right? So we could actually put Setram at 4th and Arrogance and Valeria at 6th and 5th. Because the current meta plays around rage region comps, and these rage region comps play around single units that deal the most damage, and these single units are infernal units, right? These are infernal units, and nightmare units are quite greedy. Because if you run a nightmare comp, you want to have at least 4 nightmare units in your team so they get the max attack speed. While on the rage region comp, it's hard to actually run so many units of the same faction if they're not all insanely broken, right? So as you can see here, at the first place, the rage region comp here has no nightmare units because she doesn't have time, or he doesn't have space for a nightmare team. As we take a look, we have infernal 1, 2, 3, 4 infernal units. Then what else do we have? We have the Leia for the rage region, we have Laurel for the rage region, and Hollow. These are the 3 staples for the rage region, right? And then on top of it he has Eloin, the 4th unit for the rage region. And that's the problem here. That's the main problem. So basically, if you don't have Eloin, you can run it without Eloin. But if you want to perfectly go with the full rage region comp, you're going to run 4 slots already taken, right? And then you have to decide between a few things. You either go for infernal comp, or for you go for a nightmare comp. Now the nightmare comp at least wants 4 units, and if you use 4 units on the nightmare comp, you won't be able to get infernal. And unfortunately, the highest DPS in the game, Scylla 2, is infernal. The other units are infernal. The ones that come on top of it, the 3rd place we're going over now, is Hex, right? He's infernal as well. So the thing is, you want to have an infernal comp, and then you don't even have space for a nightmare comp. And then you want someone whose single unit is still strong, just like Silas. So Silas, without any help from anyone else, he doesn't need anything else, right? Because of his threat, his increased stats don't matter as much. Because of his him being a piercer, he doesn't need like the nightmares multiple units. So this is why nightmares have suffered a bit in the new meta that has established itself with the rage region comp, which makes them not as high as they used to be. Now we go over the 3rd place, the first on the podium, and I have all 3 of the first 3, so quite happy about that. And the 3rd place goes to Hex. So Hex is someone who is quite a bit hard to gear. So you either go for the Soulbound Arcana, or you go for the Ageless Wrath set. Why don't you go for the Infernal Roar on Hex? Well, the problem for Hex is that his cards that he draws don't count as auto hits, and the card is basically the main amount of damage that he deals. So therefore he won't profit from it, and you will have to run another set. But he profits from being an Infernal unit, he profits from being a Piercer unit, and he profits from being a magic damage unit. Like we mentioned before, magic damage is better against the guild boss because he has less resistance against magic damage. Because he has less resistance against magic damage, is going to be the case for all of our three top damage dealers, is that he, Hex, because he's a magic damage dealer, will be able to run double crit damage and 1 crit attack bonus, while non-magic damage users will want to use probably, most likely, double attack damage with only 1 crit damage. So he can get more crit damage without having to get blocked by the defense threshold, because the defense threshold for magic damage is lower. So this is a big advantage for him. On top of it, he functions extremely well with the Rage Regen comp, and he is one of the units that is able to deal up to 180 million damage, as we saw here, for example, 180 million damage. The only one drawback that Hex has is, like we said, he can't really use the Infernal Roar set, and on top of it, he can't get his A5 because he loses out of damage if he goes for the A5, because the draw takes too long. But really the main drawback for Hex is actually that he's quite random. What do I mean with Hex being quite random? Well, it's basically that his damage fluctuates really a lot. So, because if you take a look at his kit, let's go to Hex, where do we have him? There we go. So the thing is that he draws these different cards, and depending on the RNG of his draws, of the different cards he draws, his damage really changes a lot. It can change millions of damage differences from run to run. And this is the only drawback. So he has, because of that, a really high peak, but also a lower low than others. Just something to consider. And also for Hex, you actually would prefer him with Erica as his lord over the Infernal faction. I don't know why it is the case, but somehow he deals more damage if he's with Erica than with Twin Fiend. Maybe it may have to do with his uptime, probably, because then he has more uptime, because Focus Fire will take away some of your uptime and then in return will reduce the defenses, right? While if he's not in the Infernal faction, he will still profit from the defense reductions, but still be able to deal damage while the Focus Fire is active. And also Hex has just insane awakenings for the end game, and in the end game you will actually eventually get your awakenings, right? So awakenings matter at some point in the end of the end game. Other than the A5, you don't want to give Hex his A5 because he will lose some time. It will take, the animation will take too much time, and I don't know if they will fix it, but currently he deals more damage in A4 than in A5. And next up, at our second place, we have Silas, and just like Hex, Silas profits from the Rage Regen comp because he is a single unit that doesn't need much other than himself. He also profits, just like the magic damage dealers, from being able to go with double crit damage, because unlike the magic damage dealers, he doesn't deal magic damage, but he ignores defense anyway, so he is still able to go for double crit damage. Then his damage is insane. You really want Vierna, then his damage goes through the roof. His awakenings are insane. He has so many different multipliers, and he is the only unit I've seen next to Zillitu to be able to get over 200 million damage in the guild boss. So Silas is the only unit that I've seen so far to be over 200 million damage in the guild boss, and he works perfectly fine with the meta at the moment how it is. And then before we get into the first place, I think most of us already know who's first place. I want to give you guys a few honorable mentions. So first off, we have Luguru. Now Luguru I didn't put in here because I don't really know how strong he is. He has good base stats, he has good bleed up time, but so does Salazar. And from what I heard, Salazar is the better version of Luguru. And I don't really have that much data because he's chaotic, he has been newer, and therefore it's hard to tell how good he is, but he's definitely strong. Then another honorable mention will be Solcadence. Solcadence is also a unit that can get up to 200 million damage next to Silitu and Silas, but he's quite egoistic. Because of the focus fire, he will take away some uptime. He is quite an egoistic unit, and I don't know how strong he is at this point. I don't know if he will be better than Twin Fiend or not because of how egoistic this unit is. And he deals a lot of damage. At the moment he's quite new, he's a lord, there's not that much data to go over it. He deals insane amount of damage if you have him. Of course use him, but it's hard to tell how good he really is. This is why I didn't really include him in the list. Other than that, he would definitely be better than someone like a Calypso or a Deimos for sure. And also he's a lord, so it's hard to be fair comparing a lord to someone else, right? And then my last honorable mention, guys, is Comet. Boom, there we have it, Comet, guys. Now you guys might think I'm trolling, but I'm not. He deals quite a good amount of damage. He's just for funsies here. He's really good for the Rage Region comp, because his problem is his high skill cost. With the Rage Region comp, this problem is gone. And the reason why I put Comet in here is because I got Nocturne and then I thought of Comet. Because Nocturne's ultimate gives him a multiplier of 180 plus 150%, which makes him deal, what is this, 280, 330%, huh? That's 330% damage during his ultimate. And then Comet, on the other hand, doesn't deal 330%, but he does 400%, right? And so he has the higher multiplier than Nocturne does, which is quite interesting. It's quite interesting, isn't it? Then Nocturne has his true damage, of course, and Nocturne also has this attack speed buff, plus also Nocturne is infernal, while Comet isn't, right? But my idea was simply because Comet works really well with the Rage Region comp. This is how I did Gear Raid 1 stage 21, so I wanted to try it out and I really liked it. He's a magic damage dealer, he has a high multiplier on his ultimate, and maybe if he gets another faction, maybe if some single target units come into his faction, maybe he will one day actually be interesting to use for the guild boss, right? Even though he's an AoE unit. I just thought it's funny. I think the damage I did is quite significant if we take a look here. So if you don't know who to go for, if you have different units but you're not in the end game, you don't have the optimal units, why not go for a Comet, right? Why not go for a Comet? It's just a fun little cooking at it. I was cooking in the book, because I was cooking. And then number one, undisputed queen of guild boss is Silitu. I don't think there is much to be said. You saw it before. She deals over 260 million damage from one guy. She is infernal. She works perfect with infernal. She has insane multipliers on top of it. She's magic damage dealer. She has everything going for her that needs to be going for her. She applies burning as well, which can help your hex. And yeah, this is basically the list. I think Silitu is pretty clear. Let me know what you guys think. Well, let me know if there's some niche units that you've been using. Try out Comet. I think he's fun to use. And other than that, I'm Ronaldo. I hope you enjoyed, and I'm out. Peace.